Hey, can you find a water bottle for me?
Something so simple.
Hi, Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times. On Monday, August the 28th, all the world turned south to Texas and Houston particularly, where the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey's immense rains have created a disaster of what several people have called biblical proportions, and I can't disagree. Having watched the TV aerial footage in the last few minutes, it's unbelievable, and it's not over yet. There could be 25 more inches of rain in that area before it's over, and there's no place for the water to run. Let's be political about it. Senator Ted Cruz said this is not a time for politics, but sometimes disasters are exactly a time for politics. Cruz and a number of other Texas congressmen voted against aid after the Hurricane Sandy disaster hit the Northeast. They wanted to be careful with U.S. dollars. I don't think they'll be so careful with dollars now, nor should they be, nor should the rest of the U.S. should be. Pete King, who wasn't very happy with the other Republicans back then, said one bad deed doesn't deserve another, and of course he's right. We should turn out everything we can for Texas, even if it means busting the budget, even if it means putting off a wall between us and Mexico. Mexico, by the way, has said it's happy to send whatever help is necessary to help the U.S. I guess we can be happy that Donald Trump is going to visit Houston Tuesday. Things will certainly get better then. The hurricane disaster has had the effect of overshadowing some other Trump actions. It was a busy weekend, and most of the news was bad, at least from my point of view. The president followed through on his vow to ban military recruits among transgender people. This is against the advice of major military leaders, and most of the country think he's wrong. It leaves people who are serving as transgender hanging in the wind. He says they will not be provided medical services for transition, even though it's a penance in terms of cost, even against the cost we're paying to take Trump and his family to golfing weekends every week during his presidency. That's not all that happened. He pardoned Joe Arpaio, a flouter of the law, who'd been convicted of criminal contempt by a federal judge appointed by George Bush. This panders to the base of people who hates immigrants in America. Joe Arpaio is a hero to them. He's caused innumerable death and destruction to families in Arizona, and years of lawless operations. The sheriff, people in Arizona finally voted him out of office. Donald Trump thinks he's a great American. The president's administration says it's going to approve more dumping of fracking waste in the Gulf of Mexico. How that could possibly harm the seafood industry there, I can only imagine. He also is going to resume the sale of military surplus weaponry to local police departments. You may remember this has been used in the past to do things like supply Bryant with an MRAP, which is an armored vehicle, which is not exactly needed to patrol the shopping malls of Bryant, but people do like their toys. Who knows what's left? Leslie Rutledge, the Attorney General of Arkansas today, cheered the resumption of shipment of military surplus to local police to make us safer. There's some defense, I think, in providing local police with protective gear that's in military surplus, but do we need high caliber weapons? Do we need armored vehicles? I'm not sure we do. It creates the appearance of a militarized state, which may appeal to some, not others. Some news out of the Little Rock School District this morning that I took note of. I wasn't very happy about it. Some parents at Gibbs Elementary School were unhappy to learn late Friday that Congressman French Hill was scheduled to deliver a talk to a class Monday at the school on character education. They think French Hill is not a good person to talk about character. He's voted down the line with Trump. He voted for a health care bill that would have thrown a lot of people at Gibbs School off health care. Nonetheless, I think that they were wrong to say somebody shouldn't speak. Of course, the school should allow a congressman to speak. His speech was canceled. They didn't say directly because of the protest, but those who protested thinks that's the reason. They think they were right, and certainly French Hill's record's appalling, but I've known some fifth graders at Gibbs Elementary over the years. My daughter, to name one, who'd have been happy to give the congressman some grief had he appeared before her class. I think an opportunity was missed because Hill has avoided town halls. I told the parents they ought to attend and ask him some tough questions. Speaking of sharp words, Ken Henderson's a Republican representative from Russellville. There's been a bit of a dispute in the last few weeks I've talked about where legislators led by Mary Bentley of Perry County, who doesn't represent the Arkansas Tech geographic area, has been criticizing the school for not spending enough money on its agriculture department. She's misrepresented a number of figures about Arkansas Tech's budget, from the amount paid the president to the amount spent on real estate and other issues. She's got a bee in her bonnet because Arkansas Tech's had a sex education program on campus campus that she didn't like. Well, Ken Henderson has stood up and said that Arkansas Tech's doing a pretty good job with the money it gets, and the real problem is the state doesn't provide sufficient support to Arkansas Tech. He said that's the issue legislators should be worried about, not trying to micromanage departments. Words of great wisdom from a legislator that ought to apply in any college district in the state, but legislators can't help micromanaging. There was a wonderful piece of national publicity for Arkansas in the New York Times Sunday. The travel section had a Q&A with the new director of the El Dorado Arts District, a $70 million investment down there, some state money, some private money from the Murphys and Waltons to try and make the little town of 30,000 in South Arkansas a center for music, performing arts, and all other things with new buildings, amphitheaters, theaters, a cabaret restaurant. It's a wonderful idea. It's kind of a reach, but the director says, well, if Marfa, Texas, way out in the western scrubland, can be a center for art, why not El Dorado? And let's hope they are. September 27th is when the arts show gets underway in El Dorado. And finally, yes, the violence has not abated in Little Rock. There was a capping march and a campaign against violence in Little Rock Saturday morning. A great turnout. It was heartwarming. During the time the marchers were underway on 12th Street, just down 12th Street, a store was being robbed, and this followed by 7 or 8 hours. Somebody shot in a parking lot dispute in the early morning hours outside of a Main Street club. So we've got a ways to go on violence, but we should be glad we're not Houston. Arkies are pitching in to help as most of the rest of the country is. Let's hope for Houston. That's where I'll leave it today, and also urge you to resist. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.